or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Are you ready to take a journey? Let's connect with the healers of the world. It's that time. It's time for the Language of Healing on W4WN Radio and Talk 4 TV. Now here's your host, Dr. Nicole Fortin.
Hi, everybody. Good day, and welcome to the Language of Healing on W4WN.com. You can find us every Tuesday, 2 p.m. live Eastern Standard Time, and where we discuss all sorts of great things around healing and wealth and health and abundance and change and transition. That's our topic for today. Transitions, change, and what that means to you, what that means for the future. I realized that this is the language of healing, and I thought, you know what we should do is include a little definition, like highlight a word for each show. So we might do that moving forward. Today I would choose transitions. And what does that mean? Transition, change, to cross over something, to transfer, to shift into a new perception. It means a lot of things. So we have a special guest today talking about change and transition, because that's a constant in our life. It's literally part of the fabric of our existence. Everything is in flux. It breathes, like life breathes as we do. So we cycle through change and transformation through many different stages. It's a very broad topic. Today, let's dive into a Chinese medicine perspective. And so we'll welcome our host, Dr. Stephanie Yip, who is somebody I've known for a very long time, and we have been through many changes and transitions together. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. How long has it been? Like 17 years?
Yeah, it could be.
2000, when did we start school? 2008?
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah.
We
Totally.
lived a couple blocks from each other. And so we would ride the school bus, the loser cruiser to school.
the my cars in the shop bus.
Yeah.
To university.
Yeah. And we studied, acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine together. We had a lot of laughs, had a lot of cries, and lots of major life changes and transformations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tons.
So what is something that you are aware of now?
Something that I'm aware of now that what I wasn't back then?
Yeah, well, sure.
Oh my God.
No, maybe I'll be more specific. But just on the topic of change and transformation, like what is coming up for you now? What are you aware of now?
What am I aware of now? Well, I wouldn't say regrets. I wish I would have prepared my body more for the changes that come, especially as a woman, like even just through menstruation and each month, ensuring that it's smooth and it's balanced and good, and working with those phases. Because when we were in school and at that age, you could do it all, but it was at the behest of, how we feel in our 30s, which is garbage. Because I worked every day till 2 a.m. and went to school and didn't feed myself properly and wasn't emotionally regulated. And now I'm making up for it in your 30s, right? But I think just, and that's, I just think that's our culture. We just, especially as women. So then the transitions that should be maybe a little smoother and easier and progressive are very much disruptive.
Yeah, it's like that's such a key point, because that's at the root basis of what Chinese medicine can support you through in your 30s. Because by concept, actually, you should be preserving your essence or your jing, or your constitutional makeup throughout life. So yeah, I remember those days in class and the doctors are like, no drinking late, no sex late, like no late party, you know?
Meanwhile, I think,
And then like that's like pretty much the society's 20s and your exploration and your,
yeah,
you know,
three
you're
out of five
going
of us, I think were working like restaurant jobs,
restaurants, yeah.
which are not easy and late and not conducive to health in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
It's
but you
fun though.
have to
It was
do
fun.
what you got to do. Like I think that's part of what is important in transitions is a level of acceptance.
Yeah.
Like just you know, awareness and acceptance
Yeah.
because that's where you're at the time. Like you have to pay for school. You know, you want to
Yeah.
yeah,
Totally.
support
No regret.
yourself
No regrets.
while growing and learning. And there's different avenues to do that through.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, we live and learn, and I will hopefully be able to impart more daily wisdom for my kids so they know how to feed themselves. They can still have their fun in their 20s, but be relatively unscathed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
speaking of your kids, we did a little promo video and little Maisie came on to join us, which is sweet. So you have Maisie and Jude
Yep.
and yeah.
Yeah. 5 and 9. So they're just in their development. They're phase 1, right? The first 7 years. Well, Maisie is.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know. So it's interesting to have that wisdom and that knowledge of Chinese medicine and be able to apply it as you, well, as you are becoming pregnant, and then supporting you through pregnancy, supporting you after in the golden month, the first 40 days after pregnancy, the fourth trimester, which is a
And I
whole
think
other topic. Yeah,
a
but
huge one, but I think that's a huge like milestone in a woman's life that will predict the health and longevity of the rest of her life, how she heals or recovers or doesn't. I think that transition is probably the most vital for a female if you're having kids in this day and age, because I think it's like the cause of so many chronic illnesses later in life. I did my first, I did not do it well. My second, I really learned from my first, and really I felt like I transitioned well from pregnant to birth to postpartum. Yeah. But I think that's a huge one.
Yeah, well, let's like dive into that a little bit because I think it prefaces the 7-year cycle because then once we're born, when we're born, we are conceived at the moment, you know, our jing, our essence. It's something that we talk a lot about in Chinese medicine. It's a golden treasure. It's the treasure.
You have to tell
like
them what
jing,
these
qi, and
7
shen.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I know. We'll dive. Yeah, because it's like, I mean, it varies if you're a man or a woman. It's either 7 or 8 year cycle, right? So it's like there are some differences, but in general, it's an idea or concept that every 7 years we are shifting into a different phase of life. In Chinese medicine, we also have the 5 elements, and elements is it's a translation of a character, an ancient Chinese character. So element is one definition of it. There are other definitions. It's more like a phase or it's a transition. So, you know, we're going to visit each aspect of the circle, the wheel of life throughout life. So that's what 7-year cycles is about. It's like every 7 years you're visiting a new section or segment. And if you're revisiting the same one, it's on a deeper level. So
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it starts with like conception, and you know, the concept of our constitution comes from mother and father, and then how mother takes care of herself, or what the constitution of mother father is sets us up for our life. So
and do they mention this in the classics?
Go ahead.
I think they do mention like that our prenatal and our constitution comes from mother and father, right? Like in the classics.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I find that so interesting that just now in like terms of biomedicine or Western medicine, we're catching up with like epigenetics, how they're seeing, like this is like, you're not just a clean slate. Like you do get what you're, you know, if I was stressed or drinking or dad was overweight or drinking, upon conception, like those things are imprinted in, in some way, shape, or form in the genetic makeup of you. It's wild that TCM already figured this out.
Right. And TCM is traditional Chinese medicine. If you haven't said that already. No, it's fine. It's fine. Sometimes we can get, it's like a realm. It's another, Chinese medicine is another language. I remember being through like school, and I was very Western based, trained before, like medical, and then transitioning into Eastern medicine was like I questioned everything, so I can really appreciate like the skeptic's point of view around Eastern medicine. Like, what does that even mean? What's like, well, that's a good question.
I think that's good though. I think that creates, you're able to keep learning, and you don't, I think that makes like a good practitioner when you don't just like, I'm all in.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because you have to I don't know, live take in the experience, embody it, and I think that supports, the transitions of life. I guess when you're like, yeah, but it's like a boundary. You jump in, but there's a boundary too, a little bit,
Yeah.
because you're confronting a lot of stuff. But anyway, I wanted to know what was it that was different for you between baby number 1 and baby number 2 in taking care of that and having that in mind, because I know a lot of women or families, couples that are, trying to conceive or in their gestation, and this might be useful to them.
Well, I think
what parent doesn't want to raise, a child to the best of their capabilities?
Yeah, and have a good experience. I was really fortunate. I didn't have any problems conceiving, so that was great. But my son, it was a tough birth, and I think there was a lot of factors there. But I do think postpartum, because the birth was so hard, I don't think I supported myself properly through that. And I don't think I accepted the support, because we like to just be like, we're fine, I'm fine, I'll do it. I'll just do it. That's at least how I am. And so I did have postpartum with him, and it was sort of a gradual, like it was very sneaky in how it presented itself. It wasn't just like baby blues. It was anxiety that would come and go, and then it just sort of snowballed after a while. But with him, I truly think it was because it was such a difficult birth, and I didn't really feed myself and replenish the way you should and rest. And he was, not a great sleeper. It just extended to like a year of like not feeling well. Whereas my daughter, I was aware of this now. So I think the second time for me was, I knew it a little bit more what to expect. Her birth was amazing. It was very healing. It was everything I wanted it to be. And I really had a plan in place. So I had like the bone broths and the prenatals that, or postnatals that I was going to be taking the vitamins. And I had herbs ready to go. And child care was all set up. And like just things were put in place where I would have time to rest and digest and replenish. And yeah, I was very aware of my mental health, and it was just lent to a better recovery and healing. Yeah, it was a learning curve, and every birth is different. It's very hard to predict. You just can't. Even if you have all your cards in place, you just can't predict how your birth is going to go. But I think what you can control is how you recover.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. So if anyone wants more information, contact Dr. Stephanie Yip. Maybe we'll scroll some her Instagram, or you're working at The Way Holistic Collective with another mutual colleague, Dr. Rose.
That's her baby, The Way Holistic Collective.
That's her baby.
But yeah, I'm there, and I love treating postnatal, and so I'll see it when the kids are like 7 or 8 years old and they're coming in. And we're like, oh, this started after your pregnancy. So that back to the transition or that phase, like that transition from not pregnant, and I think we often forget that you make this baby from what you have, your reserves. It's not just magically given to you. Like, it's taking your blood and what you're eating and your essence and your chi, and it's creating this human being. So, yes, your blood volume's higher and all these things during pregnancy, but once you give birth, like, that's all gone. And you have to replenish that. And most women do not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we transition to chronic illness.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so sad. I hate seeing it.
Like, also while raising the family, and so I think that's an important piece around when we're talking about transitioning. That's the original, the history. And I know what I know about the Chinese culture and studying Chinese medicine is everything starts with the history.
Yeah.
It's like let's lay the foundation. Here's the background, a little context. Like, this is where we're all coming from when we step into this life, is based on our parents' makeup.
Yeah.
And now we are born and we're transitioning every 7 years. So let's dive into that.
Mm-hmm.
What's phase 1? 0 to 7. That's an important keystone.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huge. Like, everything's child rearing, like everything is sort of implemented in that age. How they perceive the world, how they react, how they're emotionally regulated or unregulated, trauma that happens to them, like habits, how they receive love, like everything's in that little bubble of time.
It's like the real foundation,
Truly, like, the kidney, and it's the kidneys, right? Some of the kidneys. Chinese medicine, that's like your root organ. Yeah.
So I don't know what that year is called. I don't know if there's any name there. I'm sure there's a name for each cycle.
Oh, I wouldn't know.
I know that's somewhere like buried in the classics in a language we don't understand yet.
Yeah, I've tried.
Ancient Chinese.
I love it.
Yeah, but then like that's where you're also like, there's a lot of growth, right? It's like a lot of formation, and then we go into the second 7 years, like 7 to 14.
Which I think
it's regulated by the liver.
Sorry,
so it's like a sprouting, it's like a little seed that you put water on. Water is the first phase. And then we go into the second phase, it's wood. It's when the seedling begins to grow, stretch, and reach into the light. So their personalities are coming through. And they have a lot of those background, like their ego, their subconscious ego, their like, unconscious stuff is like 0 to 7. Right? Like formative. And then now they're budding from that.
And in that time, I think that's where I think it's switched. Like, the third 7 years is when like the puberty will start, like the 14. But in our culture, I think with all the endocrine disruptors, it starts so much earlier. Like, we're sort of shifted down. And then we know as we go through the phases, menopause is supposed to start a little later, but we can see like so many women at my age, like 38, it's their perimenopause, like too early, but it's starting, and probably just from all the environmental factors around us. That's interesting to see, like reading the classics when they were so much more at one with nature and their environment, eating seasonally, living in all the phases, even the everyday phase of, like in Chinese medicine, we go through the organ systems. You're up at this time, having a bowel movement, you're eating at this time, you're like living in the phases of yang, going to bed with the sun, resting in the yin stage. We don't really do that, do we? So it's like kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, and every day we don't live in accordance with the way. That's what the Tao means, right? Just like, from old. Well,
the way.
This is what, the way. It's the way. It's rooted. I mean, the classics, like, just sidebar, it's like ancient wisdom for a modern world. That's really, they were much more connected and observing, and they were aware. Like, you want to talk like, awareness of your environment, and then how to respond to that. And they had years and years of responding, and they developed that skill. And then yeah, things shift and change, and now we're here. Pretty much the same makeup, same, like things that operate us as like human spirits, like
Mhm.
sunshine, food, community, um,
Yeah. We need the
connection,
same
like,
things.
yeah, but
I
like
think we do a
our
lot.
environment's so different, and like
It's so different.
yeah,
Yeah.
we need to adapt, and that's part of shifting and transitioning and being in acceptance of what is, like
Hmm.
awareness of how things are now, accepting what, was or what is, and then that can really open up the awakening to the future. And
Yeah, it's
I think that's
interesting.
where we can like leverage shift and change and transition to our advantage and through Chinese
And
medicine.
it's totally just, I think, an opportunity to just to relearn maybe how we move in the world. It's a culture that we live in that's tough to do that because we tend to be a little bit isolated, back to the postpartum thing. I think a lot of that has to do with, women getting sick after having kids. A lot of it is they don't have help. Like there isn't that village to come and help them raise their babies. They just are on their own. Obviously with their partner who probably has to go back to work. And then they're, 2 under 2 or 3 under 5 type of thing. And they're depleted. But then it even goes to, I talk to patients of just like living with their menstrual phases. Like, maybe you shouldn't be doing high intensity workouts during your menstruation when you're already a blood deficient type person. Maybe you should use that time to recover, but or maybe in your later luteal phase, if you are feeling tired, like embrace it and rest and feed yourself and prepare for the menstruation so that you're not feeling A, B, and C all month long. And in your, third 7-year cycle as a 14-year-old girl, if you're having extreme menstrual cramps, maybe try and figure out, why that's happening and correct it instead of what we do to them is put them on birth control, right? That's what every 15-year-old is
Yeah.
on, mostly because they have menstrual cramps. And it's usually because their liver in Chinese medicine is so stagnated, which causes that pain. So I think it's just like living in accordance to like our environment a little bit more and less trying to control the environment around us all the time and trying to suppress everything because it's not working. Like eating things that are out of season that are making us feel sick. So instead of not eating those things, we take a digestive enzyme or an antacid or like, like everything is just, we're going to do the same things that we want to do. We're going to get sicker and then we're going to just suppress the symptoms so we can keep doing those same things.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
rant.
I love it. I'm here for it because it's like we forgot some of those principles or just the awareness, I think like our bodies are
Yeah.
constantly relaying us messages. We have like a wealth of information and experience at our hand, and I think maybe it's not even a conscious choice. It's like just, distraction or like
Yeah.
getting caught up in a lot of things. There's a lot more pressure around, like, I don't know, even students. I think that, even just as a social media, influence kind of way, like we didn't, like growing up with that today, in
We never had
this
it.
third year phase would be, a whole different game. So,
Impossible.
but it's like, that's also part of accepting the transition of where we're at. Like that's where society and we're evolving to. So now they have
Yeah.
this access, and then how do we shift, like even coming from a perspective of, okay, we didn't have that, how do we open up and accept that this is the new way, and then
I
support it,
don't
like I
accept
imagine
it.
for you that yeah, but like okay, so then your kids are gonna, I'm sure, like have your kids been, maybe they're
They're
too
not allowed to
young
have
for this.
phones.
No. Until till when, like what's the rule, what's
Oh,
the...
I'm prepping. I have been prepping my son for the past year and a half. Every once in a while I mention it. I'm like, you're gonna be mad at me. Like, and now he's like 8. He's like, no, I'm not. And I'm like, yeah, you're gonna want a cell phone. I'm gonna say no, and you're gonna hate me for a while, but it's for your own good. Like,
Yeah, good.
no. But and I'm so guilty of it, of like being on my phone. Like I'm such a hypocrite So I'm like, look at me. Don't be me. But no, like them, they're not. I'm going to remove that temptation, and they can have a phone when they're a little bit more mentally developed. Social media, absolutely not. Like, you can start an account when you're 17, but you're not having it at 14. Like, I just find, even talking about emotional transitions, like, what's the worst thing that can happen in Chinese medicine to cause disease is you get stuck in emotion, in an emotion, right? It becomes unbalanced, and then it causes dysfunction in the body. And I feel like a wonderful thing that's happening right now is we're very much more mindful of emotions and how they develop and how people feel and stuff like that. But in saying that, I think we're becoming too fixated on it. People are becoming too fixated on their problems or what they are emotionally. So that's what they are. I have anxiety. I have ADHD. I have this. I have that. And they get stuck and they're fixated it. And that's their identity. And like, they watch TikTok videos all day long about it. And they talk to death with their therapists about it. And it just like creates more of it in their life. So instead of like trying to move through this negative emotion, however it comes up or whatever it is, they're just always in that feedback loop of like, I don't know, recalling trauma or like this anxiety. They're never moving through. I see it with my patients. It's the same thing every week or the same, and you sort of have to be sensitive to them. But at the same time, I'm like, you're just stuck and you're looking for it everywhere. And you're just in that cycle.
It's one component. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay. But I see it on social media because then your algorithm, like say you're a 14-year-old and you're feeling lonely. So you're looking at videos of other like influencers feeling lonely or talking about it. And then all of a sudden your algorithm is just that. So you're finding yourself in all of these people and you're thinking it's normal, which it is. But it's also normal and healthy to move through it. But imagine that's all you're reading and that's all you're seeing. Like you just become it and you don't move through. And that's what like worries me. And with my kids, I'm like, no, like you need to be able to live your own experience without everybody else in the world telling you how it should be.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because that
it's like a balance.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, well, in the very first, like, the 7-year cycles. So say like, 7 times 7 would take us to 49. So we're not really dead then yet necessarily. So like we go through it again. Yeah, good news. And it's all, take it with like a bit of fluidity too, that they do shift and change for everybody, but these are like a basic guideline. But the first cycle, first go around, that third stage with the 7 to 14 is the fire element, and it's very active. It's like inspiration. It's the summertime. It's like pure expansion, and just to bring, your point around like exposing them to other influences, like it's time to explore your own like influences, right? Or your own creativity
and be exposed and relate to other people.
Like like shed light on everything, like full, like
but
gather...
like this like,
or sorry, did I say 7 to 14? I meant 14 to 21.
Yeah.
Did I
14
say that?
to 21.
I feel like I said that. Yeah. Okay.
So the third 7 years, 14 to 21.
Yeah.
I just think it can be, I think we're very lucky that we get to be so connected, but at the same time, I do think you have to be really careful to come back to your reality. Like it's not real,
right?
Yeah,
but that's also a bit of like that rebel archetype at that age, is like where they're like kind of not fully formed, like it's imaginative. Yeah,
for sure. I think it's why, we're seeing so much depression, anxiety, mental health issues in kids that age is truly the screen time and the social media. I just think it's too much information. I read somewhere, I heard somewhere about the fact that our nervous systems are not like developed to be able to handle and receive the amount of information that we do. Like we're not meant to know all the bad things that are happening across the globe. Like, ancestrally, we would know what's happening in our village and maybe the villages around us, but not the country next door. unless there was like a traveler. So it's like for us to get this bombardment of information every single day, we're so like overburdened. And then try to do that to a 14 to 21-year-old. Like, what are they supposed? And these videos and these people telling them what they're supposed to be, and they're still trying to figure out who they are. And it's like, we went through that too, but not at the, I think at the level and the exposure that this generation's having to deal with. It's like, it's scary to me. I wonder what my kids are with the AI and like all this new stuff that we're transitioning to. Like what it's going to be for them.
Well, they'll
can't
figure
stop
it out.
it.
You know,
they will,
exactly. You can't stop it. They're going to figure it out.
But in that phase, I just hope that they are emotionally and psychologically developed enough to be able to discern what's good for them and what's not, and what's real.
Yeah, and I think you have a good, like a really healthy approach to, communicate that this is coming, or this is the way it is, because you accept like reality for what it is, and that this is
and you can't suppress it. Like, I think
and then you're instilling your values. You explain why and
right.
What difference
and like,
that
I'm
will
not
make
gonna
for them.
Restrict technology, because I think they would completely go against you, and like, kids are kids. They want what they can't have.
Like,
so there's gonna be restrictions, but I think communication is key. Like I was talking to my husband the other day. I'm like, I think if we really show them why, like show them the research, show them the like tangible stuff, like this is gonna make you feel this way if you spend too much time.
And that's such a good point with like
focusing on it.
Like I don't know, having restriction, because if it's the fire element, it's like you want to contain fire. You want to have some boundary around fire, but fire is also very inspirational. So it's like you want to help bud that inspiration.
Grow and expand and raise and like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next phase, because this is such a
weedy subject.
28. It is. Yeah.
21 to 28. See, this is what I talked about. In those formative years, I wish I would have paid more attention to my spleen, because it is giving me trouble now.
Yeah, exactly. That's like your earth that you're recentering. Now you've taken all of this growth and development and you're just bringing it home. And this is where, and if you think about like earth element in women and men, like men's lives, like this generally when you might be having children. Not maybe female, that's also shifted in today's society.
Totally,
because it can be later. So, but Earth is later. Like a real, like the ultimate mother. It's like condensing in.
And as a menstruating female, if you are not digesting food, so that in Chinese medicine, that spleen, digestive system in Chinese medicine, we talk about the spleen in terms of digestion, immunity, and energy, like turning food into qi and blood, right? But like, if its ability is compromised or not there, which is my case because I just beat the crap out of it since adolescence. I was a 90s kid, so I grew up on peanut butter and jam and milk. So
cinnamon toast, cinnamon bread, that was like butter and cinnamon.
Like, we talk about it, what we used to eat for breakfast, and then try to like go study it. Like, come on, like as a kid. But like now that spleen's ability to produce blood from food and hold it properly, right? And then send that good yang qi up and take care of the dampness. Like if it doesn't happen, which was in my case, then you get illness. But I think we're seeing a lot of it. I think it's that period and that like middle jiao, spleen stomach issue, like that gut health, microbiome, like in terms of Western medicine, like affects everything. Those are those years. I think that's when it really starts.
Yeah. And I think that the more depleted you are, the more it taps it, because another concept of Chinese medicine is that we have this prenatal qi or like life force that comes from conception, like we talked about. And then you have postnatal qi, which comes from what we eat and what we drink and the air we breathe. So if you don't keep up with the right amounts, the quality of qi from the postnatal, like food and diet and air, it taps into your preservation. And this is like that time when you should be like conserving it a little bit. So it's like adrenal fatigue. That's like perfect example of tapping in to your well of reserves. And then that well of reserves is useful for later in life. That gives you longevity and good health throughout your years. It's like I relate it to an hourglass, like when we're born, that hourglass gets flipped, and then like when the sand runs out, like that's our essence. It's not really repletable. So we need to maintain our levels through food and diet.
And we talk about this stuff, and I sometimes think because we know it, we're talking about it in of how it shows up. And I feel like if people listen, they're like, "Oh my God, I'm fucked."
I know.
But the body is so resilient, and like the postpartum thing, even every period, you have an opportunity. You're shedding the old. You have an opportunity to rebuild the new. That golden month is that opportunity to literally rebuild new. And I think we always have that ability, and it can be really simple of just like the very cliche stuff: go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time, drink water, eat whole foods, seasonal foods, get rid of the inflammation causing things like the sugar and the dairy and the wheat, and like just keep it simple but consistent. And when you need that extra help, then obviously find your Chinese medicine doctor, your naturopath, or whatever. But it's like, I find we talk about this stuff and we're like, wow, this is how it gets broken, and bye.
No, we don't want to do that. We want it to be an opportunity to.
Oh, your sound cut out. I'm not sure if that's just on my end.
Sorry, Nicole, your sound cut out.
Oh, yeah, I can't hear you, Nicole.
Check your lavalier and see.
Technical difficulties.
No, we can't. While we get Nicole to fix her microphone, maybe take off the external one or use the internal one, whichever. It might have ran out of battery juice, or don't know. But speaking of running out of juice, it seems like a lot of this, if we run out of things, if we aren't charging the body, so to speak, we're going to run out of
the
things that keep us healthy.
I'm back, by the way.
And those are the little daily things. Yay!
Can you hear me? Yeah. I don't know what happened there.
I can. But a good point was made, like just recharging the body, right? That like, so we have that prenatal chi that you're born with that you need to maintain, but the postnatal is how you can recharge. So, and that's through food and lifestyle habits and, exercise and mental well-being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious, Rebel, I guess as like someone listening in and supporting us in this transition, this crossover through
the unexpected
show on the radio. The unexpected, yeah. The anticipated, the unexpected, and the what could have been. So does you can relate to some of all of these phases, and I'm sure you have experience. Like, what's been happening for you that you've noticed?
I noticed that I work Monday through Thursday. I try to live on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah. Which I think is so common, right? We're just in that grind. And then, I know for me, like so many of my patients will say, well, I just like my job, I don't have time to do A, B, or C. And then we have to have like that hard conversation of like, well, listen, like these are the warning signs showing up. So you have to decide the job or the like balance, right? Which is like very hard for people. Like, and I don't say that like as if it's easy, but that's usually the case, right?
Well, that's
Mhm.
because we put so much priority on work because work produces money and money is needed to survive. So it's what we prioritize in life. We all have the same amount of time. It's all 24 hours, no matter how you look at it. Somebody set up that schedule. So there's a 24-hour time period. And what you choose to do with that time is what you do. But we're groomed, and I'm going to use that word loosely. We're groomed to do this because someone told us this is what we have to do.
Totally.
And that's how we live. I mean, we do what we have to do. We will choose, and everybody has a choice. Not making a choice is a choice. So when you make the choices, you are choosing to prioritize things. And to be honest, we don't prioritize ourselves.
No.
It's everything else has a priority. And then eventually it'll trickle down to us. But by the time it trickles down to us, we done already did the damage.
Yeah, we've gained some wisdom around that, because I have this visual of one of these like kind of Buddhist philosophies is be like, if there's a wheel of life, that we should be in the center of it, and then everything's like moving around us, because so that's like focusing on ourself as the source, as the earth center point, and then everything moving around. But we can be in that like outside spokes. And I think that's like, because Rebel, it's like you said we focus on like everyone else and not ourselves. But in some way, because I struggle with this too, I'm like a chronic people pleaser and self-forgetter.
That's a very female thing too, right? Like the burden of the mother,
because it's still like
the
other people or the other things are still part of our life. So it's like still your spoke. It's just like what position are you coming at it from? I don't know. I'm just like
like how are you filling your cup while filling everybody else's cup?
Yeah,
I know. And that's what's
the
like.
big wheel keeps on turning.
Well, and I think people are starting to realize this, and I think it's just an opportunity to learn how to, go back a little bit to like simpler times where there was a little bit more balance. I do see like a lot of patients and a lot of people sort of talking about that. Maybe it's just our generation now being like, oh, slowing down, maybe not being so much in the grind. And
I know it's very like fire energy. You can't like, and that's one thing about the transition to menopause, is that it's a time when all the fire consumes the water. So we lose that like well of, resource. It's like, so we want to preserve the water, and water activities are rest, relaxation, reflection, quiet time, or meditation, or, doing things
like not being distracted, like the quick distraction.
Yeah, because fire, if you think about like the opposite of like, rest would be activity. So it's like you have to balance that. And okay, we're almost running out of time, of course.
So we were in the fourth 7 year, 21 to 28, and that was like that earth, or the spleen, the digestive like time, getting ready to have babies or have had babies. I was pregnant with my first, I think. No, actually I was 29 when I was pregnant with my first. But then the fifth 7 years, 28 to 35. And that's the lung.
It's like the metal element, the lung, but this element to me is like emotional maturity. It's now you've been maybe around and you're like, okay, I've completely depleted myself. I've given all that I have. And now, just kidding. Now, you take that experience and turn it into wisdom, right? And,
I almost see that as the one following, like the depletion, like, okay, now things are showing up. But it's interesting.
Right.
What you said, like, about people having babies later. And that, like, that happening. I think that's really interesting because it's true. Like, in times gone by, you did not have a baby. Like, it would be very rare that you were having babies at the 6th 7-year cycle, 35 to 42, but that's like a lot of my patients are that age, having their first. So I wonder, like how that sort of shows up in our body and its ability to progress and transition in all of its phases, which are sort of like our life expectancy is longer too, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe the phases are kind of growing and shifting. I don't know. It's a concept. It's a theory. It's a way
theory,
to
for
make
sure.
me live in accordance with life. And that's what it's really all about, because that's where that's flowing with the river. Like, I don't know that our planet or the universe or, science, physics, quantum mechanics has really shifted and changed as we have, I think the same principles remain in place. And we can still use those as a foundational grounding point. Some things never change. Some things are always changing.
Yeah. Even like in TCM, talking about the clock, the organ clock. I like to show my patients that because it can be like a nice guide of just how to make little tweaks throughout their day. In Chinese medicine, we have each time is associated with a specific organ, and within that time, it's good to do certain things. So like eating at a certain time, exercising, sleeping, whatever. And it can tell us if there's an imbalance, if your body's feeling a certain way at a certain point in time during the day or night.
Yes. If you have any health concerns or problems, questions, pregnancy related stuff, postpartum, go see Dr.
Anything,
Stephanie
all the above.
If you're in Calgary, especially. You can find them on Instagram and at The Way Holistic Collective and The Root _wellness. You can find stuff there. Okay, so then let's do this real quick because the 6th year. So I want to share something at the end if we have time.
Yes.
So sixth year cycle. Okay, we revisit the water element.
That's the depletion.
Yeah, so that's where we come around again and we get another chance at that aspect of life, that spoke in the wheel.
Yeah, and it's in this thing that you sent me, that the sort of rundown, conservation of energy, focusing on preserving health as well as wisdom gained through life experiences. I do feel like I'm 38 and I feel that. I feel I'm at that point where like I'm rebuilding, because I do think your body's resilient. You can still rebuild at this age. You can lose weight, gain muscle, fix your menstruation. All that stuff can still happen. Like, you're not just done.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel, this is that time where you're like, you've had all these experiences, let's use them. And now the next, hopefully, however long you have, 50 plus years, you can like just build on that. You're not so much like a deer in headlights anymore. You're more
you have the experience and the wisdom that comes. So it is a great rebuilding time. It's never too late. It's not too late. Still have a chance. And then even moving into that 7th year cycle is another chance to rebuild, renewal, and regeneration.
Okay.
So that's, again, a time where we're like emerging new. So maybe that's also like the midlife crisis kind of thing.
Right. Or like a menopause for women, which we view very negatively. Yeah. But remember when, I think you were because in school we had a student from Taiwan. She didn't know what a hot flash was because they didn't have those where she was from. Meaning like their menopause, she says it wasn't as disruptive as it is here. I don't know why. That was her experience and her recollection.
Yeah. No, that's a game changer and fundamental reasons why. We should do a whole other episode on that.
I always tell women like that phase, that transition, it could be and it should be like easy and lovely and like a blooming, and you're coming out of like these years of bleeding, and now you get to just be. And like instead we're dry and hot and frustrated and fat and lazy.
Yeah, it does.
Right?
I know, but I guess I mean that is a pattern that will show up with imbalance or not living, like in accordance, or that's where the acceptance and the flow and how Chinese medicine can help support you through that. Yeah.
I want to
that's
hear
true.
your story now.
Okay, quick story, because as we were preparing for this show around transition and change, and I just felt like it was a good topic this week, and then I had a dream in the middle of the night or early morning about moose migrating. So like migrating moose. And then my new friend ChatGPT is like the Google condensed. It's like, what does it mean when you dream of migrating moose? And it listed off. I feel like this is relatable to so many of us. So I'm sharing the message. The top 5 things that it means is change or transition. They're associated with strength and adaptability. So it's like, maybe going through anticipating a significant change or transition in your life related to a move, a career change, personal transformation. I know a lot of people going through a lot of change and shift. Number 2, exploration and adventure. Keep your desire alive. 3, instincts and intuition. Follow your gut. Pay attention. Be aware. Number 4, strength and resilience. They are powerful animals. So follow on that when you're facing challenges and moving forward. And 5, connection with nature. So deeper connection with nature, or need to reconnect with the natural rhythms and cycles. So we'll leave you there. Thanks again, Rebel and Dr. Stephanie Yip. It was a pleasure having you on, and we'll see you.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody, what does transition mean to you? Think about that, and we'll see you next week.
Wow, what a show today. And the journey does not stop here. Come travel the world with Nicole every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, as together we become more fluent in the language of healing on W4WN Radio and Talk4 TV. See you next week.